So welcome, Matt.
Thank you for having me. It's a real honor to be a part of this podcast. Thanks.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I was out for having dinner with friends at an Indian restaurant, and I was talking about the podcast, and you wouldn't believe it. It was I hadn't even heard of you, and I can't believe I hadn't. And a guy was over, a friend of mine, Thomas, was over from Michigan, and he said you should get the guy free 3D hands, and I said, what is it? And he said free 3D hands, and I said, where? Tell me about this guy. And he pulled it up on his phone. And I can't believe that it took someone from Michigan to tell me about someone in Gippsland. Anyway.
It's a classic.
Yeah, but I'm so glad. I'm so glad I chased you down because, reading about what you do and looking at it and talking to you, what you're doing is just absolutely fantastic. I introduced it in the intro. Said what you're doing, but Matt, how did you get into it? What's your journey to this?
It was actually it all came about during a really, really difficult time, to be honest. Back in 2014, I was working as a senior engineer at Toyota.
Yeah.
And some of you may remember there was a big announcement back then that automotive manufacturing in Australia would come to a close, and we were told that we had 3.5 years to transition into a different industry, and all of a sudden, 2,500 people that I was working with were in a situation where we felt like we were standing on this big ship, the Titanic, and the arse of the ship was going up in the air, and we had to make a decision whether we'd sink or swim.
Yeah.
And I look back at that time now, those years of uncertainty and fear of change, I suppose, and I'm really grateful for them because it really allowed me to reflect on who I am and
Yep.
what I was born to do.
Yeah.
And over that first 6 months of turmoil, I suppose you could call it, I went back and asked myself those really, really simple questions that a lot of us don't ask ourselves. What do I enjoy? Often kids get asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? And
Yep.
they don't ask themselves, what lifestyle do I want, or how do I want to make the biggest impact on the world, or what kind of role model do I want to be for my own children?
Yep.
And for me, I just reflected on and really just tried lots and lots of things, to see whether that would resonate with me, and ask myself what I was passionate about, and that word passion follow your passion gets thrown around so much,
Yep.
you know. But I think passion is something that often gets misunderstood. And so I actually went back to the dictionary and asked and looked at what the term for passion actually meant. And the first thing that came up was that it's a strong and barely controllable emotion.
Yep.
And I started asking myself, what is it that makes me feel emotional, to the point of almost tearing up, and it certainly wasn't making carbs. I was good at that. I was good at that, but it didn't really quite make me emotional. And it took me back to a time where I was in university over in Japan during my university years, many, many moons ago. I don't even want to think about how long ago it was. And I had the opportunity over in Japan to trial this $1 million bionic arm.
Wow.
And it was incredible. The sensors on the arm would pick up the muscle signals, and the hand would open and close, like my own hand. It was replicating what I was doing.
Wow.
But with a $1 million price tag, even though I was amazed at the technology behind it, I couldn't help feeling sad that this technology wouldn't be accessible to most people on the planet, even if you got that down to $100,000, down to $10,000, down to $1,000 for someone living on $1 or $2 a day. It would be something that would be out of touch. So I just started listening to that calling, and I bought a 3D printer. Because all of these ideas that I had in my head about how to make something, all of a sudden there was this new technology that we could actually make them for a very low cost, and in manufacturing ways that we couldn't do before. And I'll actually show you something. I found it for this podcast. Unfortunately, the people who are listening won't see it, but it's a very, very simple finger joint
Yeah.
It was the first thing that I ever designed
Wow.
with a 3D printer. And I used to carry this around in my pocket at Toyota. And, during those years to try and keep in a positive mindset, during
Yep.
that time. 3.5 years of going through redundancy is a long time for anybody.
Yep. Yep.
And I just started this a very, very small vision of making one hand for one kid, for someone who was born without fingers,
Yep.
to put a smile on their face, to keep myself in a positive mindset during a pretty tough time. And so I downloaded, it was an open source design of a website called Thingiverse, from a small group over in America at the time called Enable, and they were trying to do the same thing that I was. And I connected with them over in the States, and they told me that there was this boy in New South Wales, 4-year-old Eli, that he'd been born without fingers, which affects well, they actually estimate that 1 in 500 children are born with some form of hand difference,
Wow.
which is quite common, I think.
Yeah.
But for young Eli, I connected with his family, and we helped to design him an Iron Man themed hand. We helped pick the colours, and we made this red and gold hand, and I sent it to him, via the post, scaled it to the right size, and 3D printed it. And about a week later, I get this email to my desk. I'm sitting at lunchtime checking through my emails, and this is this video of Eli, wearing this hand that I'd made him, picking something up for the first time with his hand, and just the smile on his face.
Yeah.
It changed my life forever. And I think it was just something that I'd stumbled across, that I was just like, wow, this is amazing. This is something I want to keep doing, without any thought of how I could make it viable. Talking about a business model, making things and giving them away for free is probably the worst business model you could think of. But it didn't matter. I kept making more and more and more of these hands, and started sending them to people all around the world. The next one was to a boy, Zach, over in New Zealand, and I sent an arm over to Iraq, and all around the world. Just as I was going through this difficult time, and by the time those 3 years were up, I just knew that this is exactly what I wanted to do. And with the rest of my life, but had absolutely no idea about how I was going to go about it.
Wow, I love that. I love that. It's when people say, when you talk about find your passion, and also passion means sacrifice. It means to sacrifice something for somebody else, or for something else, and when you're I'm hearing you talking about your passion, and a lot of people say that a lot of people are looking for their passion. They're looking for their purpose. They're looking for their why, and I love asking people, like, why do you get up in the morning? Why do you get up? And what if I asked you that, Matt? What do you say to that?
I honestly, I haven't worked a day since I left Toyota. I work longer hours than I ever have before,
Yeah.
but I don't feel like I've sacrificed anything, because I thoroughly enjoy what I do.
Yeah.
It's funny. I get to a Monday morning, and I'm absolutely pumped to go to work, and then I don't know what day it is until I get to Friday and go, oh, it's Friday already. I'll have to stop what I'm doing for 2 days and come back to it on Monday. It's absolutely bizarre, to get when you finally find what it is you're passionate about. And I think we're often told to study hard, work hard.
Yeah.
No success comes without hard work.
Yeah.
But I don't work hard. I work joyfully.
Yeah.
And right. And I think if something's hard, you're not really enjoying it.
Yeah.
And I think it'll always feel like you are sacrificing,
Yeah.
in some way. You're giving up some portion of your life, to sacrifice for being able to, I don't know, save money and go on a holiday or something.
Yeah.
Where in the past, in previous roles, I worked long hours. I was good at what I did, but I was always trying to escape.
Yeah.
I'd come down. I was living in Melbourne, and I'd come down to Phillip Island, where I'm now living, on weekends, just to go to the beach and soak up that salt air,
Yeah.
and fly my model gliders off the beach. With
Yeah.
with the Pacific Gulls, and that gave me the energy to get through another week, and that's not good.
No.
That's not a good way to be. Where I've found that I've been able to hone and tune my lifestyle to a point where I'm working long hours, but every minute is an absolute joy.
I
And
love that.
yeah, it's just I feel so connected with the universe and the world and the people in the world, and it's I suppose the one value that I've always had. I've enjoyed making things for other people more than for myself.
Yeah.
And when I can share something that I've made with somebody, and to see that smile on their face is just the most special feeling in the whole world for me.
And I can see it. I can actually feel your energy through the screen, and you're almost tearing up. You're making me stop it, Matt, because you're making me cry. But that's when you're talking about at the very start, what is it that drives such a heavy emotion or such a strong emotion, that makes me really, really feel something. And as you're talking, I can feel your emotion. You're so, it's tears of joy, like it's tears of connection, tears of satisfaction, tears of impact. It's just tears of, I couldn't be living a better life.
Yeah, it's gratitude, because I've through this journey, I've just met the most incredible people that have helped me along the way. That have, I think if you share your why with other people, and if it's true from your heart, then people will help you along the way. And I've just got so many stories of people that have helped. Coming at someone I don't know why, but they nominated me for Australian of the Year right in that last year of working at Toyota, and I got a phone call just after I'd walked out of the gate. I was down at San Remo Beach looking out the water, knowing exactly what I want to do, no idea how to do it. And I got this phone call saying that I was a finalist for the Australian of the Year Awards, and I actually said no initially. I wasn't interested in that kind of hoo-ha. But it was actually my wife said, Matt, just rock up, go along, because you never know who you're going to meet. Because at the moment, you've got no job. You know what you want to do, but you don't know how to do it. Go along, because you never know who you're going to meet. And so I did. And they called my name out, and I was one of the 4 Victorian Australians of the Year in 2018. And
wow.
And awards are awards. They're bits of glass. People the next year won't remember who got it. But for me, I met this incredible man, Samuel Johnson, who some of your listeners might know, runs a charity called Love Your Sister. And he was one of the other 4 Victorian Australians of the Year. And we travelled up to Canberra together. And he just really resonated with what I was trying to do. And we spent the next couple of nights on his balcony of his hotel room up in Canberra having a few beers. And he took me under his wing and gave me lots of advice, and started to take me along to some of the events and things. He connected me up with the project on TV, and dragged me onto John Fane's Conversation Hour and those sorts of things. To really get the word out of what I was trying to do. And as that happened, things just kept starting to snowball, and all of a sudden, we're getting all of this help, people wanting to come and volunteer, and a law firm down in Adelaide, Norman Waterhouse Lawyers, contacted me and said, "Hey, Matt, we'll work pro bono and set you up as a charity, which is a massive thing to get DGR status as a charity, right?" And they did that all pro bono. And all of a sudden, gone from working from the kitchen table, literally, to then, we moved back to Phillip Island. I made the harsh decision, I suppose, to go bugger it. I don't know what the answer is. I still haven't made this financially viable. but let's do it because it felt right. And my wife said, follow your passion.
Yep.
And I did. We moved back down to Phillip Island and rented a house down here, and it had a single car garage. And thought, this will do. This is enough space, and work from home before it was a popular thing. But that only lasted 2 years. I just couldn't get a good balance between family and work.
Yeah.
And we had media coming through our house and moving our couches and our televisions and all of that kind of stuff. And I was like, no, we've got to get out. So I leased a factory for 6 months just to test the waters and see if I could grow it. And it was funny. My wife said, Matt, follow your passion. And we both decided to utilize the redundancy payout from Toyota to forego purchasing that first house, to go bugger it. Let's do this. And if that money lasts 1 or 2 years and we haven't been able to sustain this, whatever it was, then so be it. It's just get rid of that fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
And we did. And then we moved into this factory in Cowes, and then politicians started coming through, and people had tours. We had, the governor even came through, Linda DeSoto. It was just amazing. Had this car with like the whole cohort came down, and even the British High Commission, they brought down this award from Queen Elizabeth II. They handed me this award, and I'm like, with this car with this crown on the number plate, and I'm like, what's going on here? Maybe we must be doing the right thing. And it was funny when they handed me this award, and it was hand signed by the Queen, the Points of Light Award, I think it was called. And they're like, this is bestowed upon you by Her Majesty the Queen, blah blah blah, as the 94th Points of Light. And they're recording it, right, to go back and show the royal family. And I'm looking at this gun, and my instant reaction was, this is going straight to the pool room. They probably thought, you Aussie bogan. But then we had all these high school students volunteering, and university students started doing internships with us, and we just little step by little step, we just started to grow upon what we're doing. And it was really, with the exposure of getting those sorts of awards and things, I became familiar in that I was able to then join the public speaking circuit, and that's how I ended up finally, after two or 3 years, starting to draw a wage, and start to build that bank balance up again, of my 10 years of savings, that I pretty much just put on the line to try and pursue this. It was really tough. It was tough, but at the same time, I knew it was right. It was the right thing to do. And if I failed, then I wouldn't have lost anything, because it was the right thing. It felt like the right thing to do.
Yeah. And even if you failed, and that's not the best word, but even if it didn't turn out financially or viably, you've still look at, even if you'd changed one life, but you'd changed so many more, like that's worth it. If you have to say, well, I can't keep going, but I've changed 100 lives. Wow.
Yeah, it's
that's massive.
It just, like, that vision, I think people helped me to grow that vision of what it could be.
Yeah.
Making one hand for one kid to make, maybe, I think I did an interview once where I think it might have been on Neil Mitchell. I think I said initially, I might make hands for, say, 10 or 20 kids, and just commit to those families that if they ever need a new one, they'll always be here.
Yeah.
But that grew and grew and grew and then I thought, maybe we could have hundreds of 3D printers, and we could supply the whole world, and people were helping us to pay for the materials and the postage to get them out. And it was just, it was something that grew. And then when I finally realized how big the problem was, the World Health Organization estimate there are over 1 billion people in the world that need some form of assistive technology, whether that's a wheelchair, a walking stick, hearing aids, a prosthesis or orthosis is about 40, 50 million people. But out of the billion people in the world, out of an 8 billion population.
Yeah, 1 in 8, yeah.
Right? 1 in 8. So out of those 1 billion people that need assistive technology, only 10% can access or afford it.
Oh, wow.
So that's 900 million people that are going without devices that would greatly improve their quality of life. You know, you're wearing glasses there,
Yep.
right? That's 90% of people can't access or afford glasses.
Yep.
And I just thought, there's no way I could have thousands of printers. I could have 1,000,000 printers, but I wouldn't have the capacity to help everyone.
Yep.
So the focus actually shifted from myself making so many hands. We don't even count how many hands we make. It's not a KPI of ours. It's we share all of our designs with the world, and now we have over 6,000 others that are using our designs to replicate what we do in all parts of the world. And that is how you can help large numbers of people, by sharing knowledge, collaborating with others, and working together with a shared vision of helping people. Because that's, I think, regardless of any job out there, if you really hone down on the reason why that job exists, it's to help people.
Yeah.
You know, you could be cleaning benches in McDonald's, you know, and think, that's my job. I just clean tables in a restaurant. But what's the reason behind that? You know, you walk into McDonald's, you know, and you grab your meal and you sit down, and there are pickles on your table. You know, you're not really happy, right? But if you go there and you sit down, it's crystal clean and smells fresh, it'll put a smile on your face, and you'll be happy. And to create that joy for people, I think is what the crux of any job does. And I think if we focus on helping people and working together to do that, then I think it really redefines what work is for us.
Absolutely. I love this. And how much would it cost to buy a 3D printer that could do that?
Well, that's interesting. We've been offered in the past really expensive machines. Like, we were offered a $150,000 3D printer.
Yeah.
And I actually declined it, because if I designed my parts to actually make on that machine, that would mean that others can't replicate what we do.
Yeah.
So we actually use the lowest cost machines that you can buy. Some of our 3D printers are only worth about $260 each.
Wow. Yeah.
I can actually pick up the camera.
Yeah.
And I'll actually show you. This is our 3D printing room for those that are able to watch the podcast. But for those that are listening, so we have these low cost machines.
Yep.
That can make even large size hands, and we have about 40 3D printers now.
Wow.
We've got staff coming back from leave next week, being Christmas, but we've just been designing and innovating, and we've got a little assembly area here where we assemble all of the hands, and we've got a dedicated setup. And the reason we have so many printers is because we can make different parts for the same hand on multiple printers, on 5 or 6 printers.
Yeah.
And by doing so, we're able to cut the lead time down. So instead of taking 15 or 20 hours to print one hand, we can do it in about 5 hours.
So how long would it take for one person? So if I had a $260 printer at home with all the, I don't know what you call that plastic stuff that threads into, I don't know what that's called, with all the stuff that prints, how long would it take to print one hand, in your own home?
If you had one printer with all of the parts, it would take about 15 to 20 hours, depending on the size, of course.
Yeah.
But that can be done while you're sleeping. You just push the button and away it goes.
Yeah.
So we have our printers running day and night. They run through the night and all kinds of things. But if you had one printer, it would maybe take 15 or 20 hours. So in a few days, you'd be able to make and fit up a hand. So it's pretty cool.
Wow.
And we actually use a biodegradable material as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
It's actually called PLA, and it's derived from cornstarch.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. And the way we've set up our production line, so we run purely on solar power day and night.
Yeah.
We had some amazing support from RACV Solar, and we have the Tesla Powerwalls now. We've got some amazing support through RACV Solar for that. So the way I describe the hands that we make, they're made from a biodegradable material powered by photons that have traveled 150 million kilometers through space and landed on our roof. So it's pretty cool.
I love that. I love that. So if they're biodegradable, how long do they last a person?
Yeah,
Like a
so
lifetime?
typically people will grow out of them quickly. So that the reason why a lot of children around the world can't get prosthetics or bionic arms is purely due to the cost. An entry level arm would cost about $29,000.
Wow.
And we can manufacture them for about probably $5 to $10 in materials.
Wow.
So if a kid can't even decide what color hand they want, we can make them 2 or 3 or 5. Some of the kids we send hands to are on about the 6th or 7th hand.
Wow.
We just got a request from a lady who we've provided a black hand to. We provided her with a hot pink one, and she just mailed us recently and said that she's getting married in March and she'd like a skin colored hand for the wedding. And I was just like, oh my goodness, of course you can. It's really special. Yeah, really special.
So an adult hand, like that, they wouldn't start to break down.
No,
So how long would they?
It's like a piece of steel, right? If you're using a knife or a fork to eat from, and you wash it and keep it in the drawer, it'll last you a lifetime. But if you all of a sudden put that out in the elements, into the sun and the rain and the salt air, it'll degrade and rust very quickly. And it's the same with this biodegradable material. If you're using it in everyday use, it'll last as long as you need it. But as soon as you compost it and put it in the right condition, it'll biodegrade, and the sugars will it'll biodegrade once the temperature. I think it's defined as being able to be in an industrial composter, which requires, during a composting process, temperatures get up to about 60 degrees. So once you hit those certain conditions, it'll start to degrade.
Wow.
But we usually find that it'll last as long as it needs to last. So this is actually our latest kinetic hand design that we have about 6,000 people around the world.
Wow.
It's a body powered device. It's very, very simple with a small amount of wrist movement.
Yeah.
And that wrist, the fingers open and close.
Wow.
So this allows people to be able to pick up, hold a cup or hold a bicycle handle, and it's a very, very simple, quiet, silent operating device that young children, you don't have to worry about getting it wet. It doesn't have any electronics in it, so it's very, very safe, to use. You don't have to worry about getting it wet and sending it back or anything.
Wow.
And that can be made on those same small printers. You can make one this size. This would be a very, very large adult size hand.
And so is this assuming that a person's arm finishes at their wrist, and they don't have a hand, and it's
so this particular design is for someone who has a partial hand, and a lot of the traditional socket-based prosthetic devices require that there's a narrowing wrist to fit the arm into it. But we've been able to design a hand that you can actually fit. I can show you this piece here. You can actually fit the palm inside the hand. And we can modify that design to suit each particular hand difference. For example, some kids are born with just a thumb. So we can modify that design to accommodate that that hand. Or they may have 2 fingers. So we can make the other fingers to be able to open and close. So we can modify the design. That's the beauty with 3D printing, is that you can modify a design. You don't need any additional tooling. You don't need to modify the machines that make the part, because it just builds it up from nothing, which is amazing.
Is that hard to do? Like, if you're not an IT person, and you don't have, you can use a computer, but you don't understand all the coding and stuff like that. Is it just a matter of downloading a 3D printing program and then just making loading it and hitting go?
The design itself requires pretty high-end software, and So we consider ourselves now not as a manufacturing hub. We're a design hub, really, that we have access to, the world's best design software. We can create these, really organic, beautiful designs and share those designs with the world. So then people who don't have those skills to design can download our design and basically scale it to the right size and manufacture it themselves, even with a very, very basic understanding of the technology. There's actually a hospital over in Thailand that they had access to our design, and they built these very, very simple, gantry style, like aluminium extrusion style 3D printers.
Yeah.
And they started printing our hands, our kinetic hand design for a leprosy colony.
Wow.
And there was this man, and it was unbelievable. I'll never forget the day. They sent us an email from Thailand, translated into English, from a man that had leprosy, and he'd been without both of his hands for 50 years. Can you imagine not having access to being able to pick up anything or or grab anything, do anything really, for 50 whole years? And this hospital have downloaded our design, made this very, very simple 3D printer and scaled it to the right size. And then they train them how to use their hands again. And I just thought to myself, even if we had charged, if we had sent this man a hand, or we'd even charged them to download our design, say it was $10 a download.
Yep.
For me, then that hand would only be worth $10. But when we provide our designs and all our hands and everything completely free of charge with no expectation of reward, then it becomes priceless. It really does. Yeah. And the amount of joy that I had knowing that this man will never know my name. Yeah. If I got hit by a bus tomorrow, he would still have access to these hands because other people have the ability now to make them. And for me, that's really what it's all about. It's almost trying to make myself redundant again.
Yeah.
Take ourselves out of the equation. But until that happens, to use our privilege to do as much as we can to help others to replicate what we do.
Yeah.
With the hope that people will carry on our work and improve upon our designs even further.
Yeah.
That's really what it's about. The focus is on helping as many people as we can, and the more people working together to make that happen around the world, then I honestly believe one day that every single person on the planet will have access to assistive technology. It's just going to take a lot of work to get there.
Yeah.
But we're able to do it. In Australia, where we are so blessed. We have access to incredible education. We have, we don't even have to worry about the quality of the water that we drink.
No.
And I think it's our almost our obligation to work towards helping people who aren't as fortunate as ourselves.
Yeah. Geez, you're a bloody good egg. You.
I just love what I do so much. We're actually working on a new design. This is actually, I designed this yesterday, actually, and I printed it overnight and I assembled it this morning. This is a new design for an elbow-powered arm that would open and close the fingers.
By moving the elbow.
And the wrist can actually rotate as well.
Wow.
So this is actually being designed for people over in the Pacific Islands. So there's a massive problem in the Pacific Islands with machete violence.
Oh, wow.
So people attacking people. And if someone runs at you with a machete, what's the first thing you do?
Put your arm up. So
we're actually working with the Pacific Island Orthopedic Association to train up the prosthetists and medical professionals over there to be able to replicate what we do. And we're starting to design robust devices that don't need, if you're living in a remote village in the Pacific Islands, you don't want something you have to find a USB charger for.
No.
So we're designing an elbow-powered device that would open and close those hands, and to be able to manufacture that at for maybe $15 in parts. I think that would give a lot of freedom. Back to there's the largest cause of poverty over in those regions is through disability. And if the sole, I hate the word, breadwinner of the family becomes disabled, then it can force the whole family into poverty. So working with these organizations around the world to try and enable people to, to be the best that they can be. It's something that drives me every day, through our design.
I think
Whether it's something that, a full hand, it could be something as simple as we if we get contacted, my daughter would like to play the violin, for example, born with one hand. And so I designed a violin attachment and worked with her violin teacher to get the angles just right and to tune it. And I didn't hear back for about 6 months after the initial consultation backwards and forwards. She said she was going to go and learn, and right at Christmas time this year, I got sent a video from the family of young Kelly. She was playing violin with her sister at their local church Christmas concert.
Oh.
And it was just to see her playing the violin, for something that for me it took maybe a day of my time, but to see her empowered and achieving things that she wanted to achieve was really, really special. Other things can be simply serve a tennis ball, right? It's really hard with one hand. We made an attachment that goes onto the arm to serve a tennis ball, or as I said, the skipping rope, or have I got one around? I've just got random things scattered on my desk. I developed a device that if you don't have a left hand, you can attach it, and it actually arpeggios one octave on a piano. For someone who would like to play the piano. For myself, music, is a big part of my life. I actually have a piano next to my desk.
I love that.
I think it's really important in any creative space to have music and to be able to put yourself into a different mindset. For me, I'll sit and play Chopin for 10 or 15 minutes if I'm stuck on a problem, and come back to it, and you can see it from a different perspective.
Yeah.
But to enable kids with hand differences to enjoy music, for me, it's a really, really important thing.
Oh, they reckon that too, like to listen to classical music, symphony music, that type of stuff, while you're trying to concentrate, actually opens up your brain in amazing ways. So
yeah, it really does.
Yeah.
See, I'll have really random playlists on while I'm working. We play music, 10 hours a day at work. Sometimes it'll be Megadeth or Metallica, and sometimes it's Chopin or Mozart. But I think music has a really really powerful way of opening up the brain into different everything's frequencies and things resonate. And when you resonate with certain frequencies, it's like people, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes.
People operate on different frequencies, and some people you match that frequency, and other people you don't.
Yeah.
And I think that's with life. If you emit positive frequency and energy, the universe it'll respond and bounce back towards you. It's really funny how sometimes you can think, oh, what am I going to do now? And then all of a sudden, just the universe responds and goes, there you go.
I agree, but I think you've got to be open to it. You have to. That there's a great movie, Loch Ness, and in that there's a great line. He goes over there to see the Loch Ness monster, and he says, "Well, I have to see it to believe it." And the little girl says, "No, you have to believe it to see it." And I reckon that's such a good line, and it's so aligned with what you're saying about the universe. I do the same. I ask the universe and it responds, and sometimes I don't even have to ask, I just trust. And there are other people who say, what a load of shit. Stop doing that. And I'm like, you have to believe in it, or you can't access it.
Like you can walk down the same street, and if you've got if you're operating on a negative frequency that day, you'll see the rat in the gutter, that you'll smell dead wallaby, you'll see the clouds in the sky. But if you can get yourself into that positive frequency, you'll start to see you'll smell the fresh bread, you'll see the rainbow after the rain. And it's not a load of crap. It's and I suppose I have the luxury now of choosing the the people that I spend time with and I bring into this journey, we have some amazing people, that have come into our journey, just bubbly, happy people. We've got a maternal and child health nurse just joined us, because she was underemployed. She was only had 2 days of work. So we're like, well, work here the other 2 or 3. And but she's the brightest, happiest, bubbliest person. And we just try to create a space that we're like family, in that we're able to bring the best of ourselves to work as well as the worst.
Yep.
And just and I think that just drives respect for each other, and it drives everything really. If you get down to this, respecting and loving and caring for each other.
Yeah. I love.
We've just we designed we actually had one of those moments during the pandemic. We were actually lucky to survive that, but we actually diversified massively what we do. We, all of a sudden with the lockdowns and all of that sort of stuff, Wonthaggi Hospital had 10 disposable face shields left at the start of the pandemic, and they had no idea when the next ones were coming. So my wife and I we couldn't use charity money to do that, but we actually bought up a whole bunch of materials, about 15 grand. There goes our house deposit. But and we bought all these materials to make 3 face shields. We just diversified, and we went into full-time 20-hour-a-day production with 2 shifts, and we were able to eventually get government funding to employ 7 people before all of this, JobKeeper or JobSeeker or whatever they called it, kicked in. And we just supplied our entire region with face shields. But it was really, really awesome because it made us stronger as a team, doing what we could, what was best at the time to serve the community.
Yeah.
Of course, we were still making hands and things, but I think just that, creating that environment that you're just always listening to what's important, what's right.
Yeah.
And for myself, we had the best assembly technician, Rebecca, running our printers and making our hands. And she fell pregnant. She had a beautiful baby boy, and we're like, we really want her back, So we set up our workspace to be family friendly. So we've got a room with breastfeeding chairs and cots and bouncers and change tables, and it's more like a creche. It's awesome actually, because
that's amazing.
And just to have that space that's all embracing, and I've got a 7-month-old daughter now too, who's coming to work 3 days a week as well. Is
she really operating the printers yet? No.
Not yet. By her first birthday.
I love it. You've got this but everybody has got this shared purpose. It's kind of like we're all working for the same thing and we're all getting the same joy. When we see people have the hands. But I love what you said before about love and care for one another. I was just having a conversation with a guy in another organization yesterday, and talking about how, love and care, if you ever said that in a workplace, it would be like we're fluffy, and it's all that. But we have to start saying love and care. We have to love and care for each other. And it's not fluffy. Kindness, compassion, that's the stuff that has to be in a workplace. Yeah, I know you're picking. I'm talking because I know you're picking up a parcel.
Sorry, that's that one delivery that I said was coming today. I apologise.
No, don't apologise.
Hang on.
No, you're right. I'll just keep talking.
My light at the moment. There's a light on the roof.
I'll just keep talking. I think that we've got to be much better at sharing love and kindness and investing in each other and bringing our whole selves to work and caring about who we're working with. And when we can truly invest in each other and truly care about each other, that's when all the great stuff happens and we support each other better. And, that's exactly what you're doing there. But Matt, go back to the start, go back to the entry, because I was just watching then, and you've just got this, guys, if you're listening to this on audio, seriously, you're going to go and see the video, because Matt's been showing all these example hands the whole time, and now he's in the front of his store, factory, whatever you call it. Doesn't look like a factory. It's so bloody nice. and he's got all these photos up on the wall of all these people who have oh, look at the colors of those hands. I'm sorry, I'm getting engrossed in the pictures, guys, but he's got all these pictures up with all there's people wearing their hands, and the smiles are incredible, and the colorful hands. And oh my God, there's a kid holding hands with her, looks like her mum. Oh, another kid playing the piano, a little baby, people walking, holding hands, playing a guitar. There's one with just a finger, a little kid riding his bike, someone playing cricket. Oh my God, this is fabulous. Oh, and he's got
And
every single one smiling.
we had a Paralympian wearing our hand in the opening ceremony at the Paralympic Games in Tokyo.
Oh wow.
Amazing.
And there's the kid with the violin that you were just talking about. And
Yeah.
and a kid riding his bike with a bigger smile.
All of these ones on this wall are ones that other people around the world are making.
Oh wow! Look at that.
This is that hospital in Thailand with their 3D printers and making these hands and teaching people how to hold a bottle again, how to pick something up. And there's a group down in Cairo.
Wow.
There's a group in Poland. There's groups in France, Italy, South America.
Wow.
And look at this, how they've taken our design and they've put their own, Disney princesses logos and things on there. We've got Superman hands, we've got Spider-Man, Batman, groups in Italy, down in Colombia.
Wow.
In France, they put acrylic nails on our hand to make for this young lady.
Oh.
And just to see, this one here is a glow in the dark hand.
Wow.
It's
guys,
really
you've got to watch this.
See all of, we've taken ourselves out of the equation. If I was to die tomorrow, then these people would continue to get all of these hands.
Wow. And that's
really our goal.
It is amazing. These people overseas, they're all supporting people in their own local communities. And
that's right.
Yeah. Wow. I tell you what, guys, I'm holding back tears. Now he's going down the hallway, just so you really got to go and watch this video.
Created this space, and this so I've got to talk about this space.
Go on.
So we had a case where, at our previous factory, during the pandemic, the market value went up with everyone escaping Melbourne and moving to Phillip Island. The rent went up significantly. And we thought, what are we going to do? And the universe responded again. And we had this beautiful man who wants to remain anonymous on Phillip Island, who retired. And he said, you know what? There's a factory for sale in New Haven. And he bought it and leased it to our charity for 10 years rent-free.
Oh my God, what a hero.
He didn't want any notoriety. He didn't want anyone to know his name. And we're just paying the outgoing so it doesn't sorry, I get pretty emotional just thinking about it. It's amazing. He never wants us to go through that situation again where we have to move. And then we got a grant through the AMP Foundation to support fitting out this new beautifully blue design center. And I actually designed the whole place on computer in CAD. And I wanted a big long hallway where anyone from the community could come and they could look into our lab and see what we're designing and see what we're working on.
Wow.
And then to be able to just come in and see the 3D printers printing.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Look into the assembly lab. We have a dedicated space now where we can have Zoom meetings where we collaborate with people around the world, and we can sit in a beanbag if we want.
Oh, that's awesome.
Beanbags are great for meetings.
Yeah.
And then we have our assembly area where we have all of the hands that that are coming off the printers that we're assembling that we send out.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
And obviously, we have little play areas for the young ones, and we have the change tables and all kinds of things.
Wow. You guys should see this. It is electric blue. It is
Yeah.
wow. Actually, if you've got Zoom, there's a big, the big Zoom color, like on your. I'm not advertising promoting Zoom, but the blue that Zoom use, it's almost identical because I'm looking at them too close together on my computer.
Even the carpet.
Oh, it is so. Why is blue so important, Matt?
It's my happy color.
Oh,
It's ever since I was a young boy, I remember there was a cartoon that I loved when I was a kid, Astro Boy.
yeah.
And on the closing credits of Astro Boy, it's got a cartoon of Astro running along, and it's got these vibrant colors come up, and there was this blue that
Yeah.
came up when I was a young boy that I just resonated with. It was on my frequency, and so if I'm surrounded by this color, I feel happy,
Yeah.
and I think when we're happy, we do our best work.
Oh, it's beautiful. And now I'm looking at it at my computer screen. I've got the Zoom color, then I've got Matt's room, and then I've got my get off the bench thing. And there's just blue going on everywhere.
Yeah,
It's,
right. It's
it's
very similar, right?
beautiful.
The color of get off the bench, the blue, right? So like a royal blue.
No, mine's, yeah, it sort of is. Yours is, actually, I like yours better. I might change
And
my
a lot of
cover.
a lot of
Yeah.
our prototypes are blue as well, right? So whenever
Oh,
we prototype anything, we make it in blue.
I
This
love
is
it.
our low cost bionic arm that we're developing, and we're
Wow.
really excited about this one. We've actually been able to develop something that functions the same. So it reads those signals in the arm,
Yeah.
similar to that $1 million bionic arm that I tested all those years ago.
And I was just reading that this bionic arm you're making for $60. Where do I see that? And it's actually making like it would normally sell for $60,000, and you're making it for
Yeah,
about $60. Wow.
currently it's sitting at about $27,
Oh,
actually.
wow.
Our target was $60. We wanted to make something for 1,000th of the cost to make it accessible to every person on the planet. And I've had some incredible support from a software engineer, Lockie Thomas. He actually approached his company. He's a software developer. And he approached his company and said, look, I've been volunteering for this charity. Is there any way you can support? And they offered him to pay him 1 day a fortnight, to pay him his normal salary, but for him to work a volunteer day and to come down and write all of the code. So he's writing all of the code, which I'm terrible at, by the way. But I come up with the design, how the electronics will work. So this is some of my scratchings on the board here for how I wanted all of the components to talk to each other.
Wow.
And he's able to then write the code and upload it into this $2.50 microcontroller.
Wow.
So all of these parts, these motor drivers. So this board here was our prototyping board, but we've been able to shrink this down to the size of your thumb, basically,
Wow.
to fit inside the arm. So
Gee.
we're very excited about the development of that, because when we release that design to the world, others will be able to not only replicate what we do, but hopefully they'll be able to look at that code and find ways to improve it further. And we've got functions in this arm that just don't exist currently in any of the commercial devices.
Wow.
The ability for the hand to just, when you're walking along, most bionic arms are just, the fingers are splayed until you tell it to do something. But no one walks like this, right?
Yeah.
And no one walks like this either.
Yeah.
So it goes into this resting position where the
Oh,
fingers aren't closed, they're not open,
yeah.
until you tell it to do something that goes back to where it was, and it'll start functioning again. So
Wow.
it's and trying to create an arm that's extremely efficient, that the battery will last all day and doesn't need to be, batteries don't need to be swapped over and all of those. But the technicalities is a completely different conversation. It's quite advanced what we're trying to develop, but we're through sharing that with people around the world, we're really hoping that even in commercial organizations, it just takes the designs to a new level. And if we can prove that, if we've done all of that R&D, the reason an arm costs $1 million is the R&D that goes into it.
Yeah.
I went to in Oregon, I went to a medical school over there and visited Professor Albert Chi, who had been working in a team over there. They developed an arm that cost them 120 million
Oh,
US dollars to develop.
whoa.
You know, $120 million to develop one arm. And it was so expensive that the guy couldn't even take it home. He couldn't wear it outside of the lab. And I went in there and I said, I'm trying to make an arm for under $100. And his jaw dropped. He was like, the joy on his face. He goes, that's what I wish I could do, right? And you know, it's all of that R&D. And
Yep.
you know, I think the only way that you can make assistive technology accessible is being non-commercial,
Yep. Yep.
right? Which sounds ridiculous, but
Yep.
so we're a research and development organization operating as a charity.
Yep.
You know, most charities rattle the tin for research.
Yep.
You know, for others to do the research, they
Yep.
basically rattle the tin to fund people
Yep.
to do research. But
Yep.
we're doing the rattling and the research at the same time. But by us not baking the cost of, you know, all of our equipment and all of our time into the product, allows other people to make it for you know, $5 or $10 in parts. For us,
Yeah.
it's cost a lot more to make the same device because
Yeah.
we've got the whole overheads in operating what we do. But it's the people around the world that support our charity that allow us to do that.
Yeah.
So the end user, it doesn't cost them 1 cent, which is yeah, it's pretty amazing. We couldn't have done what we do without the love and support, kindness, and generosity of the community.
I find it absolutely mind blowing. I think I'm in love with you, Matt. I think, yeah, I don't tell your wife. You're just a beautiful, beautiful person. And your vision and your purpose is just, you know, I mean, I've had a few tears all the way through this. And I think this is the first podcast I've just said, wow, wow, over and over and over and over. But I love what you're doing. I would love to know more about, you know, how other people can get involved, you know, and how they can do it. I don't have the brain for it. I mean, I do I actually can do that stuff, but I can't put two and two together at the minute while I'm thinking about it. But I'd love to have a crack at that. I just think that this stuff is I don't know, Matt, you've touched my heart. You this I know you don't do it for that. I know you don't do it for praise or awards or any of that kind of stuff. I know you just do it for the joy. But to know that there are people like you out there, you know, who are just focusing on bringing pure joy to people and the equity of it, you know, just why should you not have a hand? Why should you not feel the joy that I feel when I eat a sandwich or when I play an instrument or when I ride my bike or what just shake hands with somebody, you know, I feel joy. Why shouldn't you feel that? And that's so heartwarming and just so touching. I just love this so much.
It's it's a funny thing. When I was 16 years old, I was really fortunate to be accepted into a homestay over in Japan for 6
Oh
weeks.
wow, yeah.
I ended up spending 5 years there over my life. But the host family that I had over there, they just showed me so much kindness, generosity, love. You know, they offered me to come back and stay for another year. You know,
Wow.
and they put me into high school over in Japan. It didn't cost my family a cent.
Wow.
I saved up and worked, you know, stuffing chickens for $5.50 an hour to pay for the airfare to go over there.
Yeah.
Um, but I just couldn't believe how generous they were to someone that they didn't even know.
Mm.
You know, they paid my, you know, for me to eat, you know, to buying me birthday and Christmas presents, to showing me just all of these amazing places in Japan, and expected nothing in return. I
Mm.
thought, how can I ever repay them? How, you know, and then I realized through what I'm doing now, it's not about getting paid back.
Mm.
You know, I think when you give something, with an expectation of receiving something in return, it takes away everything that's special about that.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not like we make a skipping rope attachment for a young kid and think one day when she's old enough she might donate to the charity or something. We actually ask families, please never donate, because it takes away that joy that we have. Then all of a sudden there's a price attached to the devices that we provide. And it's all about manufacturing joy. We actually have it. If I had a business card here, we actually have manufacturing joy written on our business card, because that's what we do.
I love it.
I'm actually working with a prosthetist up in Sydney. He came and visited a few weeks ago, and he has lots of young children come in with amputated legs and limb differences and all kinds of things. And what he wants to start doing is actually amputating legs of dolls, right? And start making prosthetic limbs that match the ones that the kids have.
Wow.
So right, and it's sort of a thing that some people around the world are doing, but he's interested in 3D printing to be able to do that. So last night I actually designed this little blade, those blade legs.
Yeah.
And I want to actually support him to make these little kits that he can just get all of the different parts that he's making on his prosthetic legs and all of that. And so he can modify these dolls and give them as a gift to these children to put a smile on their face. So it's really cool to be able to support someone to do that.
In essence, you're just playing, like you spend your whole day playing with toys, and you're just like Santa. You just
Well, it's interesting. Santa's an interesting concept, isn't it? Because Santa, it's a magical thing in the mind of children, and you'll never be able to pay Santa back. You know that he's giving to you, and you're just like, thanks, Santa.
Yeah.
And from parents' perspective as well, it's a really special thing, because Santa's taking the credit for something that you're giving.
Yeah.
And to learn about not receiving even a thank you in return. I think the whole concept of that is important. But yeah, I think Santa's a really special thing, and if I can bring joy and wonder to kids' lives. We've just got these new blue envelopes, these big blue bright envelopes and cards. There's a press room make a lot of they're a company that make like 80% of all of the junk mail in Australia, but they have a philanthropic arm, and they've reached out to us and said, hey, if it's posters or pamphlets or those sorts of things, that they do it pro bono for our charity, so it doesn't cost us anything. All of those incidental things that cost charities money. We had a lady send us, she's a stamp collector, and she collected all of these stamps hoping they'd go up in value. Some of them didn't. All of the ones that didn't go up in value, she sent us like $1,000 worth of stamps. So whenever we send out letters to people, if we have to send receipts or whatever it is, we'll have Merry Christmas 1987 or whatever it is on the envelope. But people help us in all of these different, unique and beautiful ways. It's just really, really special, and for us to be able to support this prosthetist to, bring joy in his own way by spending, a little bit of time helping to design these doll parts for prosthetic arms and legs and stuff. It's really cool,
I love it. And so do you take donations?
We do. We're a registered charity, so that's how we survive. So public speaking for me is how I pay my wage and our staff's wages.
Yeah.
So if I go off and do a talk at an event, that won't come to me as a public speaker. It goes to the charity as a tax deductible donation, and that's how I pay our staff's wages. So that then public community donations from your mums and dads and pensioner community donations go directly towards making the hands and paying for the postage to get them there.
Wow.
So it's really been difficult over the last few years to try and create that balance with COVID and the pandemic, and all of a sudden all of the public speaking events dried up.
Yep.
But so we're actually now looking at corporate sponsorships as well to help us to pay for the back end of the charity.
Yeah.
So for corporates to to help, through an annual donation of whatever size.
Yeah.
But so we can then plan. That's the hardest thing for us. If we're on television or on we've been on quite a few different programs. If you Google them, Advancing Australia was probably our most recent one.
Yeah.
But when you're on these programs, you'll get like an influx of donations, and then it will peter off. So we actually call it a tsunami. You get a tsunami of funding, but then we don't know when that next donation's coming in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is really hard to then plan and say, next year we want to bring another engineer on, or another assembly technician, or whatever it is. So we're really looking at trying to get corporate sponsorships to really provide that baseline.
Yeah.
That we can predict next year and the year after of a baseline revenue, and say then we can have X number of people that we bring in and grow.
Yeah.
And then public donations go directly towards paying for the hands and the materials. But we have a web.
I was going to say, where can people find you? Where can people do this?
So our website, www.free3dhands.org, or our Facebook. We have a Facebook page as well, Free 3D Hands, and Instagram. I think you can actually donate through the Facebook, but the website's the best way to. It's got all of the details of. You can make a direct deposit even, which has no platform fees and taken out of it, and all sorts of. There are lots of different options. But yeah, any support that we can get, we're always extremely grateful to help us to continue doing what we're doing.
Yeah, I love it. And so I'm going to put all those in the show notes anyway, so people can just click on them. But it's Free 3D Hands. It's hard to say free.
You know what? It's the worst name for a charity. The reason I called it that is because I was getting so many emails from people saying, can you make duck feet, dog prosthetics? Can you make ears, eyes, noses? And how much do you charge for them? So I did that to actually minimize the number of emails of people asking me if I make legs and all kinds of things. And the reason why we focus on arms is because most people that go and study prosthetics and orthotics, and in Australia we've got the best level of education in prosthetics and orthotics at La Trobe University, and there's up in Sunshine Coast, there's Sunshine Coast University too. But for the majority of that course, they're talking about legs, and they hardly talk about the upper body. And there aren't that many prosthetists in Australia that specialize in upper body prosthetics, and that's for that reason. I think innovation is also it's also behind where legs are. They've got these incredible legs, microprocessor knees, all that kind of stuff. If someone was wearing jeans and they walked past you, you mightn't even notice that they had a prosthetic leg. It's just they're so functional, and a lot simpler. Where the degrees of freedom in a hand, it's such a complicated thing. So we really want to encourage others to get into that space and innovate through what we do, to get people excited about bionic arms and wanting to get into develop that, to really advance the technology, bring the cost down, and make it accessible to everyone.
I love it. So if just thinking, if someone's listening and they bought a 3D printer for under $300 and they bought all the thread, you said it before and I can't remember what it's called, but anyway, and all the stuff that comes with it, can they and they get the software and they download the design, can they get, does the design come with how you put it all together?
So that actually took longer than designing the hand itself. So for me, the first 6 months of the pandemic were a fantastic time that I could actually spend writing a 100-page assembly manual. That comes with all of the design files. So it has all of our print settings, which printers we use, where we buy all of the materials, what all of our settings are, how to scale it to the right size, how to assemble it in 100 pages of detail.
And people can get that for free.
Yeah, and they download that, they get that for free. And that's how we've been able to, spread to 6,000 people around all of these groups around the world now making our designs. But it's because we put so much effort into that manual that they're able to replicate exactly what we do.
And so if you didn't know anybody who needed a hand, but you
Yeah.
just wanted to help, could you
Yeah.
just make these and just make 10 and then box them and send them to you?
No, because each hand is scaled to each individual. So each hand difference is very different than another. So we customize, certain inserts and padding and all of that sort of stuff as well. So it's not something like a shoe where, it's a size 10 or well, even shoes, really. You've got different sizes. You really need to try a shoe on to know if it's going to fit. I've never bought shoes online. Have you?
No, once I did. It didn't work.
But we have a very specific measuring system in this manual as well of how we're able to get those measurements that we require to then do a test fitment. So we won't actually send a fully completed hand out the first time. We'll if they're on the other side of the world, we'll actually fit just a test fitment part from the scale and the measurements that we've been able to estimate within about 95% confidence that will fit. And then they'll do a test fitment, go yes or no. It could be a little wider here or there, and then we will then modify that design and then reprint and send it. So it is a little bit of a process in doing that, and that's why it's actually it's better to do it locally in the region. The best thing is to be able to scale those devices to the right size. We've had a recipient of one of our hands come to our factory, and we've been able to scale up, understand the size, print it, and give it to them the next day.
Wow.
Where that takes a lot longer if it's backwards and forwards. We oh my goodness, we had this video sent to us from Mexico recently of young Isabella, and my goodness, it was such a mission to get that hand to her because they didn't speak a word of English, and we didn't speak a word of Spanish, but we're using Google Translate to write backwards and forwards, and then they'd translate it back and vice versa, and we didn't offend them, which was great. And we sent this hand all the way over to Mexico, and they sent us this most beautiful video of Isabella's father, Diego, just excitement on his face, and her putting the hand on, basically being able to use it straight away and pick up a cup. It was just really special. To do that, like to cross cultures, to cross language barriers, and just share joy to anyone, regardless of who they are, anywhere in the world. We're all born equal. And
we all want love, and we all want joy, and we all want peace, and that's the common thread, isn't it? There's a common thread of humanity that we often miss, or we often screw up, through wanting power, through wanting wars, and wanting to control people, and that we screw that up so bad. At the end of the day, we're all humans who bleed and want peace. It's
funny. You talk about money and things, like if my driver was to make money in doing what I do, then the whole purpose would get lost out the window. You'd be focusing on profitability, on sales forecasts, and all of that mumbo jumbo. But I think if you purely focus, and this is even in the commercial space, if you purely focus on adding value to people's lives and helping people, sharing love, compassion, helping people through your product, whatever it is, then if you're adding value, then I think money is just a byproduct of adding value. Really. And I think that's how we've been able to survive, because we've been able to communicate what we do, that people support our charity in all different shapes and forms, whether that's through pro bono support or through donations. Hewlett Packard, even, they didn't even ask for a photo. They built me a brand new computer. They're like, what do you need? And they just built it, and it just arrived in the mail. They didn't even do any promo piece on it. They just wanted to help.
Wow.
It's amazing that the people that support us in all of these small ways. It's just it's changed my whole perception of the world. Really, not everyone revolves around money and power and control. And when you focus on the opposite, you can achieve much greater things.
And most people are good. I believe most people are good. I really do.
I do too.
Yeah.
I do too.
It's,
Um, but I also know that a lot of us operate on fear.
yeah, that's right.
They'll stop us doing a lot of things that we do. But if you just let go of control and embrace uncertainty,
Yeah.
That's, I think the best thing that you can do is just say, look, you can't take anything with you
Yeah.
when
No.
so why spend your entire life worrying about how much you can accumulate before you do?
Yeah.
And I think, it's funny. It's funny. Like your whole mindset shifts when you start focusing on just helping.
Yeah.
It's I haven't wanted anything for Christmas or my birthday for the last 5 years. Not
Yeah.
one thing.
Yeah.
If I did want something, it was for work,
Yeah.
to help me to do what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And it's. But if I can contrast that to a time in my life that I was most miserable, and that was when I was working 15 hours a day, 7 days a week, whilst going to uni full time. Can you
Yeah.
imagine that? I was sleeping 2 hours a night. I was working from 4 a.m. to 7 a.m. And I had these tiny little windows of free time. So I went and bought all of these DVDs, from when DVDs were still a thing. You could go to
Yeah.
JB Hi-Fi and buy these, um, thinking that, in the short amount of time that I have, this is how I'll enjoy it. But I still have all of those DVDs in their plastic wrappers
Yeah.
because I didn't have the time to enjoy them.
Yeah.
And, there are a lot of empty houses around during the day that no one's enjoying or any time because they're too busy paying for it.
Yeah.
I think we've just got to focus on what's important in life, and that's being happy and working joyfully
Yeah.
and sharing
Yeah.
with people.
Spending your time doing things that make you feel good. This is we forget.
And
Yeah.
feeling that you're adding value to the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Leave the world better.
Even in your own local community.
Yeah. 100%.
In a way that resonates with you.
Yeah.
For example, a soup kitchen. For example, if I was to go and work at a soup kitchen in the middle of the night feeding homeless people pumpkin soup, I would resent that because I hate pumpkin. I hate doing. I can't stand doing dishes.
Yeah.
And I don't like staying up late.
Yeah.
I go to bed pretty early so I can get up early.
Yeah.
But so for me, that would be a sacrifice
Yeah.
doing that volunteer work.
Yeah.
But for my wife, for example, she loves cooking. She's got a chef license
Yeah.
and she loves cooking and seeing joy on people's face when they enjoy her food, right? It's the same.
Yeah.
Same thing. But so she would be more suited to that sort of thing. And I think we've just got to find something that resonates with our soul.
Yeah.
We enjoy, because if you enjoy something, you'll spend a lot of time doing it. If you spend a lot of time doing it, you're more than likely going to get really good at it.
Yeah.
And if you stick with it and continue and don't give up, I think you can really change the world in many, many ways.
I
In
do.
our own beautiful way.
Yep. And one step at a time, one person at a time, one hand at a time, one action at a time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Honestly, if I had have thought, if I could take myself back 7 years when I first started on this journey, and I showed where I was now, what level we're at now, I would be too overwhelmed and I would not have embarked on the journey.
Yeah. Yeah,
right?
that's right. Yeah.
So if you want to change the world, change it one small, tiny chunk at a time. Chip away at it.
Yeah.
Because if you're aiming to change all of the problems and everything in the world, it'll be too overwhelming.
Yep.
And it's I think it's just a matter of baby steps.
I agree. Baby steps, and then you achieve the baby steps. You have success,
Yep.
and you're
Celebrate
like, where's the next baby step?
Yep. Reflect on the failures, because I fail every day, and it's about embracing failure, and learning from it.
Learn it. Yeah.
That's the most important thing. Learning from failures and not making. My piano teacher as a child told me, Matt, everybody makes mistakes, but only a fool makes the same mistake twice. Right. So learning from your mistakes and trying not to make them over and over again.
Yeah.
And eventually, through through failure, you'll actually you'll
Yeah,
eventually improve over time and
you will.
move forward.
Oh, well, Matt, I've absolutely loved this conversation. I've just loved it. I'm almost speechless, but I don't know how I could be speechless, but I am. I love what you're doing. I love your attitude. I love your purpose. I love your perspective. I love the impact that you're bringing to the world. I've just absolutely love this. I really want people to support you, and I can't believe I didn't know about you. So slap. But now I do, so there's no excuse. Yeah,
Well,
but thank you.
yeah, I'd absolutely love to show you around and show you what we do, and any of the listeners too.
Yep.
Yeah, we've got an open door policy. We're very transparent in what we do, and yeah, I'd love to give you a big hug. You look like you're a bit of a hugger.
I am a hugger. I am.
Yeah, so am I.
Well, I can't wait for that.
Come down
I
for a
was
hug one
supposed
day.
Matt and I have been planning this for a little while, and I've been trying to find a day that I could go down there, and the only time I had was when they weren't open. And it's but I am definitely going down there because first and foremost I want my hug, but then
Yep.
then I want to have a look around. But
That'd
no,
be great.
this has been absolutely marvelous, and that offer extends to everybody else too. So if you're down in Phillip Island, please go and check out Matt and his 3D Hands. I won't say business, wonderful charity in that amazing electric blue building. So, Matt, thank you so very much. I've thoroughly.
Thank you for your time. It's been a real honour and a pleasure. Thank you.
Oh, me too. All right. Well, I will catch you soon. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. See ya.